Hey there. So right now I'm actually in the middle of working on building a research plan. It's for my GRIP Institute homework assignment for social history. So it's a little different than my traditional research plan I teach my students, but I thought it would be fun to kind of share with you kind of where I'm at right now and what I've accumulated so far and kind of give you an idea of where I'm going. So it's a behind the scenes with Julie again today. And in just a moment, I'll switch over and I will take you behind the scenes by sharing my screen with you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Julie Cahill-Tar with Genealogy, and I simplify advanced research concepts so that you can find your elusive ancestors quickly and confidently. So if you are a dedicated genealogist looking to uplevel your research skills, you are in the right place. So again, to recap, I am working on a project, a research project. I am currently developing a plan, and I will walk you through kind of where I started, what I've done so far, and where I plan to go. So you can kind of get an idea of what I'm working on. So let me pop off the camera so we can see the whole screen and get started. Okay, so I am taking advanced practices in social history with Gina Philibert Ortega at the June 2022 GRIP, which is the Genealogical Research Institute of Pittsburgh. So our homework assignment for this particular class was to kind of study the social history, a social history aspect of either one of two people that they've provided for us, or we could do one of our own ancestors. So I chose to do one of my own ancestors. So that is what I am working on. So the way I am structuring this is very different from how I would do a typical genealogy research plan, which is to have a specific research question and build my plan around that. In this case, I have an overall research goal and then a project goal with a bunch of little questions, as you can see, and I will read it to you. So my overall research goal is to determine what the immigration experience was like for Karl Humpfler and his family, who left West Prussia for the United States in April 1892 and settled in Chicago, Cook County, Illinois. Now that's very broad because we get to be talking about their motivations to leave, their departure experience, how did they get to the port, their arrival, how did they get to Chicago? You know, all of those things are part of that immigration experience, as is life after arrival. So I've broken this down into several different project goals. In this particular one, I'm looking at gathering details about the passenger ship, the SS Dresden, which is the ship that they arrived on, and its April 1892 voyage. So I want to learn more about the ship itself, like when and where it was built, the shipping line it belonged to, its capacity, construction. I want to know how long the voyage was because there's no departure date given. And they departed from Bremen, and those departure lists do not exist anymore. So I can't go look for that. So if I can get an idea of how long the voyage would typically be, I can kind of get a date of when they might have left, or at least an estimate. It'd be nice to see if I could figure out the course or the route that was taken. Did it leave Bremen and go straight to Baltimore? Or did it stop and let off passengers and board new passengers in different ports along the way? It'd be nice to see what the weather was like during the voyage. I may only be able to find that out for maybe when they arrived, but maybe there's weather data, I don't know. It would be nice to find a photo of the ship. And I'm also wondering if there's photos of passengers aboard a ship similar to the Dresden in the years like 1891 to 1893, which would be, kind of covering the span of 1892, just to have a similar context. And then I want to know what the voyage would have been like for the passengers, and in particular, my family. Obviously, I'm not going to get a firsthand account from Carl himself, but I may be able to find information in sources that can give me an idea of what the experience was like, not necessarily on that particular ship, but about that time period on a steamship leaving from a German port and arriving in Baltimore in particular, but the United States in general. so these are this is what I'm focusing on for this particular project. My background information, just so you're aware: Carl Humpher, age 56, and his wife, Justina, age 58, along with children: Carolina, 28, Hermina, 22, Maria, 17, and Carolina's daughter, Evelina Molsky, age 7, all boarded the SS Dresden in Bremen, Germany. They arrived in the United States at Baltimore on the 20th of April, 1892. The family, along with 2 other children who had immigrated earlier, all settled in Chicago, Cook County, Illinois. So that's kind of everything that I kind of just need to work with. And then what I did is I kind of mapped out what I thought would be some general source categories that I could seek out. I was looking at something else and I had that on my list, and now I don't need it on my list. So we're just going to go ahead and delete that. But I, thought websites, books, image photo collections, which could be digital or, actual archival collections, archival materials, which again could be photographs, diaries, and journals could fall into archival materials, but I wanted to call that out specifically. Newspapers, journal articles, and maps. So then what I did is I created tables for each of those categories, and am starting to note specific sources to consult. So the first thing that I did is I went and looked at the sources I used on a similar project, and pulled out the applicable ones and have already added them here. And what I've done is I've got this table because I'm just doing this kind of quick and dirty. I'm not concerned with writing out my detailed plan at the moment. My detailed plan will include other pieces of information, but what I'm trying to do, let me split my screen here so we can see the questions and the stuff down here. So what I decided to do is I have the questions to address and then specific sources. So for websites so far, I have the ships list website, which can address questions 1 through 8. Norway Heritage, which is, just as an FYI, not just Norway information. It's got a lot of information about all sorts of things, immigration and ship related. And that can actually address questions 1 through 9 because they actually do have some photos of passengers and stuff. And then also the Steamship Society of America has some interesting bits of information that could address what the voyage may have been like. And then I started adding the books because I own some of these and others I've used. So The Huddled Masses, The Immigrant in American Society, 1880 to 1921. That can address questions 5 through 10. So how long was the voyage and what would it have been like for the passengers? Ships of Our Ancestors is literally a book of photographs of passenger ships, all types, all kinds over a period of time. So I definitely want to look at that one because that will answer question number 8 potentially. There's also a book, which is German passenger liners, 1850 until 1895. And I am actually not familiar with this particular publication. I just came across it in another reference. I had it on a list. I just had never consulted it before. But I do know that this particular Dresden steamship was part of a German fleet, just from previous research. So I do know that. So I know this book might be helpful because, again, it's got approximately 120 illustrations of ships. And then for each vessel, date, place, builder, gross tonnage, knots per hour, etc. And that can help me answer questions 1 through 4 and 8 potentially. And then finally, American Mosaic, the immigrant experience, in the words of those who lived it. Over 130 narratives in 3 parts, and I would be interested in this first one, the last of the traditional immigrants, 19th to earliest 20th centuries, and that can help me address questions 5 and 10. Now, I will be taking this information and putting it into a detailed research plan, which I typically will use for a research project, a genealogy research project. And what it will do is have the information about the source, and then my reason for it, I would put, it will help me answer how long the voyage was, potentially, because those narratives could say, we were on the boat for 14 days or whatever. And then the voyage experience, for example, because there are over 130 narratives. And I would be interested in this particular part. And so I would note that in my detailed plan so that I know exactly what I'm looking for when I retrieve this particular book. I kind of got to this point where I kind of went through stuff that I had previously had. And then I also was looking at the Immigrant Arrivals, a guide to published sources that the Library of Congress has put together. And I went through most of them. You'll see all the orange ones I've been through. And then I was just on Internet Resources, and I thought, hey, wait a minute, I should kind of do a quick behind the scenes and kind of show you what I'm doing. I should have maybe done that from the beginning, but oops. So at any rate, this is kind of where I've left off, and I've already been through it. I already had this one on my list from another project. And then I have opened up these 2 things from Cindy's list in new tabs. And then I also had come across in a Google search this website or web page that has online resources, books, and then marine museums and libraries. So it's broken up into 3 parts, and I haven't been through this one. Some of them, like the ships list, again, I already have that one on my list, but I will go through and kind of just basically, let me see if I can find something that might. Okay, so this page has pictures and descriptions of many of the ocean liners from the mid 1800s to 1960s. Also includes links to other sites having large number of pictures. So I'm going to open that one. This hasn't been updated in a while. It says last updated September 2011. So this may or may not. Oh, it does. Cool. Look at that. Okay, so my task is to figure out whether or not this site would be useful for me or not, and what I'm trying to do, and how it might be helpful related to those questions that I'm asking. I'm not here to do research. So it looks like there's in-depth articles on more than 100 ships established in 1999. I'm assuming that the website was established in 1999. So it looks like you just go to the ships, or you can go by decade maybe. Again, I'm not doing research. I'm just trying to get an idea of, what these things might have. Okay, so pretty much what the other website said. Specifications of the construction and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure if these are actual photos of that or just pretty photos to put in there. I don't know if you can search. Well, I hit that. I can try to do Dresden just to see if it's on here. Does not look like it is. So unfortunately, it does not look like this one will be helpful for me. So I'm just going to go through each of these and just kind of get an idea of, fortunately, there's a description. So it'll tell me right away whether or not it's going to help me or not. And I'm going to open it up and kind of see, does it still exist? If it doesn't, I can do a quick Google search to see if it just changed, addresses. Anyways, I'll go through all of these. I will go through these books. And there's some museums and stuff, museums and libraries that they have down here, which this Mystic Seaport Museum is something I want to go to just because I have people from that area of Connecticut. It has nothing to do with the project I'm working on, so we're not going down that rabbit hole. Okay, and then, like I said, these two immigration and naturalization and ships and passenger lists from Cindy's list, I did open those, and I'm just going to go through and, like, for example, in this case, I'm thinking general resources. And I can just kind of scroll through and just see what's here. And then, of course, there's the ships and passenger list. Now, a lot of this is specific to actually finding the actual manifests. But I know under general resources, there are some potential sites that might be of help as well. But again, I'm just going to go through and kind of read these descriptions, see if anything matches. If there's no description, I'll take a look at it and see, does it apply to any of the questions? And if so, I will come over here and add it to my list. In most cases, like from Cindy's list will be websites. That other website, this one, where did it go? This one has a couple books, so I may have that. And then these would more than likely kind of fall under my archival materials, because that's more than likely what would be available for research at these places. More than likely manuscripts and archival materials, potentially diaries and journals, things like that. So once I get to archival materials, I'm going to head to Archive Grid and just kind of start there and see what I can find. Diaries and journals, I will also use Archive Grid for that. And then I have newspapers on here. I thought maybe newspapers could help with things like maybe the course or route that was taken, the weather, like that day of arrival, and how long the voyage was. Where the port of arrival is, they usually have something like ship news or something like that. And so there might be some information in there. And at minimum, at least I could probably get a weather report. And then I had journal articles, and I probably should put magazine too, because I do have an article that I've used in the past called Setting Sail, that was in Family Tree magazine in September 2017. And that can actually help me answer questions 5, 6, and 10. And then I had maps, and I was thinking it could help with this course or route taken. I might be able to find something. And in fact, there's a kind of a generic one in this article actually, but I'm sure I can find something else too. And then the image and photo collections, I've already added the one for Ancestry because they do have a collection. And I put 8 through 9 because the other set of photos that I'm looking for, wondering if the Library of Congress might have something either digitized or part of their manuscript collection. So I just kind of put a note there as I put this table together, just so I wouldn't forget as I'm going through this. So that's basically what I'm going to do, is just kind of go and use the traditional resources, probably do some Google searches, maybe get creative, and I don't know. I just kind of have to go with my gut and just try to find stuff and then add it to my list. And I want it to be pretty extensive because I want to be able to correlate enough information. The more information I have, the better conclusion I can draw. And, with social history, it's really about trying to figure out the story, but knowing that you're not going to have the exact story. Like, I'm not going to be able to tell the exact story of Carl and his family. I won't be able to tell that, but I can use other sources that can help me illustrate what they might have experienced, what they might have felt, how things might have happened. Now, some of them will be factual because they're, like this stuff about the ship and its construction, all that kind of stuff, that will be factual. So, it's just kind of one of those things where some of it will be, I'll be able to figure out the weather the day they arrived. It was raining in 20 degrees or something, whatever it was, right? So, I mean, there's some things that are going to be factual, and other things like, what would the experience have been like, for 8 days on that ship? I can only hazard a guess based on other experiences that are documented, whether it's in one of these narratives, for example, or some other source, maybe a diary from somebody who was also a German immigrant that came over on a similar ship that also left Bremen and arrived in Baltimore in like 1891, for example. And I can use his experience and say that, well, this gentleman had, this is what he went through. So it's possible that so did Carl and his family. Let me come back on camera real quick. Okay, so we're kind of on the subject of research planning. Now, again, this was kind of a different type of project. It's a social history project, so I'm approaching it a little bit differently, kind of a lot differently, kind of in the middle. Okay, let's go with the middle. Somewhat different than I would with a traditional genealogy research project. And speaking of research planning, if you haven't seen already, I just released a couple of weeks ago a new mini course, which is research planning for genealogists. And it is available right now. The price is $27, but until June 30th, I am offering $10 off with the coupon code RPGYT, which will be in the description of this video. So you can take $10 off and get the mini course for $17. It's basically 3 core lessons that take you step by step through my planning process. And you do the first lesson, you do the activity. And then in the second lesson, you build upon that activity with a new activity after you've learned the lesson. And the same thing for the third lesson. And then at the end of that, you will have an actionable research plan that you can then implement. Now, my goal is to get you to get out of your comfort zone and start planning your research and not just thinking, I'm going to go here and look here and put this in here and try searching this. No, I want you to see the benefit of a plan, and I want you to learn how to do it effectively so that you're saving time and energy in the long run. There's also another lesson that has next steps so that it helps you kind of give you some ideas for tools and things you might want to use as you're researching. And then I show you how I use my detailed plan, which is not what you saw. This is kind of just my preliminary thing, but I will transfer it to a detailed plan like I do with my genealogy research projects and use it as a research log. So I show you how to do that or how I do it. So, hey, if you want to enroll, totally cool. I'd love to have you. If not, that's fine too. The information is in the description. Again, the coupon code will save you $10. You only pay $17. It's a pretty good deal. And that's good through the 30th of June, 2022. So I hope you enjoyed this video, this behind the scenes of my social history project research plan. And if you did enjoy this video, if you would go ahead and like it, that would be great. And don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell so that you're notified of new videos when they come online. And until next time, bye for now.